over on Monday that he was going to come in. And it turned out that it was over the 4th of July, so it was a long 3-day weekend. And one of my nurses, I was on charge for the weekend. One of my nurses came to me and said, Loretta, I think he squeezed my hand. And I had to think, So I went into the bathroom, the door, and I said, I have to do something. So I went in and I sat by him for a long time and held his hand, but I didn't feel like he squeezed it.
Mm-hmm.
So then I went, but I felt morally obligated to call his mother and tell her.
I'm tired.
So I called his mother and told her that the nurse felt him squeeze her hand. And she came in, and then she came out, she said, I do too. And then the on-call physician, and then Monday morning I was there, and the flight team was coming in, they're coming in to harvest his organs, and the physician started yelling at me. He said, what have you done? He said, he's not gonna make it. What have you done? You've given this mom false hope. And I just was like, I was devastated. And then over the weekend, he woke up and came back.
Wow. What?
And so then the Monday after, then the next week, they transferred him up to rehab. And I just kept working, I didn't know. And meanwhile, the head physician was not talking to me, like he wouldn't look at me, he wouldn't talk to me, And then it was like 2 months later, I was working, and this young man came down to see me, and he had his mom with him and his dad, and he took both of my hands in his and said, thank you.
It was him?
It was him, and I just started crying. We were all crying.
Mm-hmm.
He was crying, I was crying, his mom was crying, and it was the right call to go against the system. And say, I had to trust my nurse. I had to trust my nurse and what she said. I had to trust her.
Mm-hmm.
And we made the right decision.
That's crazy. It's like out of a movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Out of a movie. Well, the decision wasn't too happy with that, and that's just crazy how he was like, he had made the trip to like harvest the organs, but like the fact that he like had no hope and just like, I guess looked at the person just like as organs, that's crazy.
Yeah.
We in us nurses, we tend to have sort of what we call dark humor, and it's just our way of coping.
Yeah.
But they were there to take his heart and lungs, and we said, well, he could make it even though he had a brain injury, but he ended up recovering really well. But they said, yeah, he can make it with a brain injury, but he would have been hard pressed to make it without a heart and lungs. and
That's funny.
And it's just our way of coping. It's our way of coping with really difficult situations.
For sure, yeah. Makes sense.
All right, so what has been like the most rewarding part of your experience working like abroad in police?
I think the most rewarding is the people that we help, and sometimes we don't know the people that we help. But in one case, we carried down in our briefcase an obstetrical tool that would help them be able to do ultrasound monitoring of pregnant women.
Okay.
And that day when we were down there, we were training the obstetrical physicians on how to use the equipment. And when we were down there, one of their patients was a woman who had lost a baby, her previous pregnancy, and she was pregnant now, and they didn't know whether to transfer 4 hours away to have a C-section in Belize City. So that means you'd have to be in an ambulance for 4 hours to go to Belize City to have a C-section because they didn't want to risk her losing this baby.
Yeah.
So they're thinking maybe we should take it a little early. And we were able to use this equipment to say that her pregnancy was going fine. She was at term. And while we were there that week, she delivered a healthy baby.
That's great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So we felt really good. A lot of times you're not able to see the results of your work or see the face of the person. Like when they said that this lab equipment we donated saved 5 people's lives from snake bites, we weren't able to see the faces of the people, but we were able to see this woman, and that was really cool.
Yeah, that's great.
That's awesome. So kind of just like moving past the you being an international nurse. This will be the last question. Would you recommend like being international nurse to someone who's like interested, and if so, like why?
I definitely would recommend it. I think you're able to make such a difference in the lives of so many people, both internationally or even in this country, being a nurse. My best, I feel like I've made a difference to people, both one-on-one, like, you know, certainly that young man when I said, no, you can't harvest his organs. But also when I was administrator for the clinics, and I had 4 clinics in Racine and 4 in Illinois, I led a program to hire nurse practitioners, and they hadn't had that before. So, and 3 of the nurse practitioners are hired or still in those positions today. So I think in nursing, whether you go into administration or whether you're a frontline nurse, whether it's internationally or here, you're able to make such a difference, and I think it's a very rewarding career.
Be able to like connect with a lot of people and just like feel like the impact of your work and like see like kind of like the product of your work. That's pretty cool. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about like the COVID-19 era, and kind of like what were like some of the challenges that you faced in work, and just like kind of just being like a story like run down how COVID was for you working as a nurse.
COVID was the hardest thing in my career. And, you know, I've been in nursing for 40 years. I like to say that I never knew I was going to add to my resume that I led a long-term care facility through COVID. So I was administrator of St. Monica Senior Living in Racine. So I had 130 residents that I was responsible for, and 130 staff worked for me.
Wow.
And it was extremely stressful.
I bet. Yeah.
I worked 18 straight days in a row, and my director of nursing worked 21 straight days in a row. And we worked 12 to 14 hours a day. Because, you know, some of our staff got COVID, so they couldn't come to work. So we would take food out. You said you worked in dietetics. We would take food out to the rooms, and we did all the jobs to make sure we got through it. And we, you know, COVID lasted about 2.5 years. We did not have any COVID cases in our building for the first 1.5 years. And we thought, oh, we've made it. And then we got COVID. And we did have loss of life.
Oh.
And that was very hard. Although the people were, you know, older, you know, they're in their 90s, but still, you don't want anyone to have that diagnosis.
No, never.
And we could never understand. Like, you would have 5 people that would get COVID and go to the hospital, and sometimes you can think, oh, this person who's really old and has all these comorbidities, they're going to be affected. And they would end up coming back, and somebody that was younger and had nothing else wrong with them would pass away. And it was, you couldn't understand it.
Couldn't understand COVID.
You could not understand it. And so I am very proud to say that all of my team stayed with me. None of my staff quit. Like a lot of organizations, staff quit.
Yeah.
My team stayed with me through the entire thing.
That's a
And
good
I'm
solid
very
team.
proud of that. Very proud of them. And then after we got through it and everything was stable, I really felt like I needed to retire and take time to regroup. And then I biked across the United States.
Such a crazy time, COVID.
So, you know, I know it affected students too because you had to learn at home.
Yeah. It wasn't like a great learning experience really at all.
Yeah, no. I'll say out of like all my time in school, like COVID was probably like the most I've struggled in school ever.
And I think it's very hard. It was very hard for the teachers also during that time because like you have to try and teach to kids that are like sitting at home on a computer. It's like it's really hard to do all this work when you can't be there in person.
And also just like have their attention while they're on the device.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. COVID definitely was.
Did it affect you when you had to come back to campus and then interact with people all the time?
It was a little bit different for me. Yeah, I think so. I think just like the wearing the masks at school was a very different experience. It's like also when you.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
You all would have to wear masks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that first year we had masks when we came back.
Yeah, we have to wear masks, and after like so long of like you just wearing your mask all the time, and like when we came back like to school, and like COVID was like I guess done, and you can like go to school without masks. It was like kind of weird looking at people.
Yeah, that also.
They got some time.
Like, who are you?
Yeah, I'm used to seeing you with a mask, but yeah.
Time to get used to that, but
It just seems like a distant memory now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's in the past.
Seems like so long ago, but it was not long ago. I know I've asked like about some challenges. Sorry, no one second. Would you say being a nurse, I don't know, maybe like when you first started your career, would you say it was a lot more challenging than it is to be a nurse nowadays, or would you say it's more challenging to be a nurse nowadays?
I think it was always challenging. I think it is harder now because they're asked to do so much and not have enough staff. I can't imagine like being on a medical floor and having like 20 patients, to take care of and to keep straight. Because I was in critical care, I always felt pretty fortunate in that I would only have like 1 to 3 patients. And so I was able to concentrate and know everything about those patients.
Yeah,
and I was confident that I was giving good care. I think it would be really difficult to feel like I didn't have enough resources to give the care that I wanted.
Yeah, for sure.
Would you say urgent care is like one of like those positions where like the ratio from patients to nurses like a lot more lower?
I worked urgent care and I really liked it. Not emergency room because that was too much, but urgent care is, and I did have a patient that came, or a young man that came in that had an allergic reaction. I had to give him a epi shot, and I was so pumped up. I gave it, and I think I gave it so hard. You know, he came for a follow-up visit in 2 days. I got to see him again, and he was teasing the doctor. He said, I have a black and blue mark from where she gave me the shot because I was, he came in and he was like blue, and I grabbed the needle and I slammed it down, but I had so much adrenaline that I just really slammed it into his leg, and he got a black and blue leg.
The guy who did the EpiPen for me, so he was like, "Sorry, man, this isn't anything personal. It's like stabbing with it."
Right through their clothes, you go right through. But I really liked it. I liked that because there was a difference. There was so many different varieties. Somebody came in and they actually had a pulmonary embolism, and we were able to get them to the hospital, and they lived. Another guy came in and he had been fishing and he got a bobber in his right here.
Oh.
And he was so funny. He had us laughing because he would raise his eyebrows.
Oh.
And the bobber would go up and down. And we felt so guilty because you're not supposed to laugh at patients, but he was just making us laugh.
That's funny. So what do you think are like some like fundamental differences between nursing and like doctoring?
I think they work really well together. I always liked the doctors that I worked with. You mentioned that when you went into the urgent care, how they worked as a team and everyone knew what they were doing. When I worked in neonatal intensive care nursery, I worked with one of the best neonatologists, and we would go to a delivery and we would be resuscitating a baby, and you wouldn't even know. If you looked through the window, you wouldn't even know it because we each knew what we were doing. Each had ours, and we worked very well as a team, just in sync. And that's really a great feeling when you can work as a team. And that's what's really makes it worthwhile. And I think if you talk to physicians, they'll say the same thing, that they really want the best nurses, and nurses say the same thing. They want to work with the best doctors, and we're all here for the same reason. They, normally, in most cases, work really well together.
Has there been like an instance where like you guys, or have you ever like bumped heads with someone and like not been able to like treat a patient so smoothly because you guys weren't working as a team?
No, not really. It was just that, except I told you about the one case where I bumped up against the physician.
Oh yeah, the physician,
but
yeah.
Normally it's not that, it's just that sometimes people, trauma, really, like if you lose a patient,
You're scared to do it again.
Everyone experiences grief differently. So I had a physician, a patient, I was working the night shift and I realized that the patient had gotten an infection. And when it comes to babies, that's really serious.
Yeah.
And he was so upset, he took a syringe, or not a syringe, he took a scissors and threw it across the room. It wasn't at me, but it was like so upset. They just took it and threw it across the floor, and it kept flying across the floor over my area. And I knew he wasn't mad at me. He was just really frustrated with the situation, that he did not want his patient to get this infection. And so we understand that we understand that each person's human.
Yeah.
And we understand that we have to lean on each other sometimes and support each other when one person's having a really hard time.
Yeah.
And so it's more that you're like, oh, that person's really struggling today, and what can I? Sometimes you can't do anything. You just know they have to work it out. Yeah.
Sometimes, like I mentioned, I work at a hospital, and like sometimes I'm like in like little kitchens. There's like little kitchens. I'm like restocking some of the stuff, and like a nurse comes in. She like asks me like, oh, like how are you going? How are you doing? Whatever. And then I like ask them back, like, how's your day going? Yeah. They always like tell me, like, most of the time they always tell me it's not going so well, or it's been a rough day. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's like a lot of the times they're having like bad days or rough days. But I mean, it's good when they have a good day, because you can tell like it really like it like boosts them, and like I feel like they can enjoy like working a lot more when they're happy.
Right.
You can also see it in their faces when like they're like down, or
And I'm sure too, if they're taking care of someone that's not doing well, and it really makes them feel bad. Yeah. And even if they expect it, even if they know. And I found that in long-term care, because you would get to know, you might know these people for 10 years. And then, they pass away because they're old.
Mm-hmm.
And but you got really close to them, and you knew their life story, and you know their family,
You know everything about them.
and you know everything about them, and so it makes, and one part of you makes you sad, and another part of you is that you learn so much about them, and you learn so much from their life that you gained a lot,
Wow.
and it makes you a better person. So you come away with a lot more, and so it's, you just feel like you're better for it.
Yeah. Would you say the relationships between like a nurse and a doctor is like different between a relationship between a nurse and a nurse?
Sometimes it can be the same, and I never got into like one time I was scuba diving in the Mediterranean, and someone got hit. They had a tank fall on their heads. So
Oh, wow.
I jumped in to help because I'm a nurse, you know. And this other scuba diver said, "Well, I'm a critical care nurse, you know, a nurse practitioner," she said. And I said, "Okay, I'm your assistant. I never get caught up on who has the most experience, or who has the most degrees. You know, if you say, well, I have, you know, I'll say, great. I'll hand you the tubing."
That's funny. You guys are there to work together.
Yes.
Yeah. Which of the skills that you in what ways would you say has nursing shaped your role in relationships like with your community? Like, do you think you have built better relationships with your family or better relationships with your community from being a nurse?
I think people always feel safe if they know you're a nurse.
Yeah.
I have stopped at, like, sometimes accidents. If I don't stop if there's, you know, an ambulance there because they have somebody, but there's not, you know, I've been at accidents where I stay until the ambulance gets there. And a lot of times I don't do anything but just talk with them and let them know that help is coming, and you know,
like
ask them,
calm everything down.
Everything down. I think that's one of the things one of the skills that I have is that I don't get excited. You know, I'm calm, and I can help direct people or just be there and just hold their hand till someone else gets there, or, you know, I've had to sit with people when they're dying and just be there with them. I think that's a skill that I'm glad that I can offer.
Yeah, I feel like in those situations, like having that person to like lean your head on is like very useful, and like it's like very helpful for during tough times. Do you feel that people would treat you in a particular way once they find out that you're a nurse?
So one of the things that I found out is that, you know, I'm a lot of times in a leadership position where I'm actually more on the business side. And I find that sometimes people think, well, you're not tough enough or strong enough when you say you're a nurse, because they think of it as a, you know, kind, gentle person. Yeah. And so sometimes that's frustrating to me, you know, but on the most of the time that's not the case. You know, most of the time, you know, people are respectful of the care that you give them, and they know it's important.
Yeah, definitely. Are there particular ways you feel you've been able to contribute to your community as a result of your training and experience as a nurse?
I think just being there, and knowing that you can help people when they're sick, whether it's with information or just being a physical presence, one-on-one, or when you're in a leadership position, you make a difference by hiring the right people. And sometimes that's been the case. So yes, I feel like I've made a difference in my community.
Yeah. Sure. All right. Well, kind of just like looking ahead to the future, what would you most like? What would you most like people to remember about your time and experience as a nurse?
That's a really good question. What I would want people to know is that nursing is a great field and you can do so many different things. And I loved business and I was able to combine my two passions, caring for people and business, in one career. And I feel really fortunate that I was able to do that.
Definitely. All right. Well, Laura, I just want to thank you for your time and
Yes.
thank you for taking time out of your day and having this conversation with me. I really like to hear your stories, and it was very eye opening. Some of the stories that you told us. And yeah, I just wanted to thank you so much for your time.
Yes,
you.
thank you. I think we got really good information. Great stories. Loved it all.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Well, thank you for picking this project. It's a good one.